Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and today I want to talk about aggression and bullying within a specific species of fish. And while I'm talking about it, you can see it taking place behind me. And I want to talk about what you can do to reduce that and what I'm going to do. So first off, it was not intentional. I do not like to see one fish getting bullied by another. Now, if you've been in fish keeping long, you've probably heard people say that with a certain type of fish, you're better off either just having one or having a larger group like 5 to 10. Because if a fish has a tendency to school, they'll do better in a larger group than in a smaller group. This large fish is absolutely set on establishing his dominance for this tank and being the dominant species of his kind. However, he's allowing other smaller fish that are not monos to swim freely in here without much problem. So there's mollies in here, there's a couple guppies in here, there's very small puffers, there are catfish, and there's a large archer. The catfish are called Colombian sharks, but they're technically a catfish. And this is a brackish aquarium. But all of the things I'm saying apply the same to a wide range of fish species. That mono is not as interested in what these mollies do. This little group of mollies, he doesn't really care much because they're not in competition with him for being the dominant mono in this tank. And I guess I'll start with how I ended up with this setup. The local fish store I went to, that is the best fish store in my area, had a brackish tank set up for a long time. And they had this mono with this larger archer. And I'd been wanting to set up a brackish tank for quite a while. When I finally went and got this 125 gallon, I said, this is going to be my brackish tank. I got a great deal on this used, and I've spent very little getting it set up the way it is. He had this mono and this archer, and I said what I want in the tank is a datnoid, a scat, a group of 5 or 6 monos, and the archer, along with the Colombian sharks and the puffers. He said he thought that was a great plan. We talked about it for quite a while. And he said the problem is this mono and this archer, anything I put in the tank with them, they have a tendency to bully it because those two have been in his show tank for months at a time, and he's cycled some other fish through there, and they've had this aggression problem. So I said, well, let's start off by adding a bunch of small fish at once and rehoming them here at the same time. And that's the plan we went with. So I was supposed to get 4 monos, scat, datnoid, archer, and the 2 sharks with the 2 puffers that were already sharing this tank with them. And most of that came in, but the datnoid and the scat and 2 of the monos couldn't get here till next week. So I went ahead and took them, but I only had the 2 small monos. And all of the other fish have been healthy and happy since I got them home. My water parameters are all good. But one of the monos hid in the corner for the whole first day, and then I found him floating the next day. He didn't handle the stress of going from the wholesaler to the pet store to my house, and he looked darker and was real thin and just wasn't moving real well. And it's always a bummer to lose a fish, but the first day, if you bring home a whole bunch of fish and you lose one, I don't get upset with the fish store. I just think sometimes that's part of it. And the other part of it is he probably, with all the stress of the move and the change in water and all the things that a fish goes to when they come to a new home, he was also being bullied by this mono. Both of these smaller monos were hiding in the corner, and one of them didn't make it. The other one is doing just fine. So I've said we need to have them in a group. And here in 2 more days, I'll be adding more monos to this tank. I did give some thought to housing this mono in a separate tank. But what I've been doing instead is increasing his hiding places. So the first 2 days he was here, he just mainly hid in the corner. And when I put food in, he'd come out and grab some food and go right back to the corner. Then I rearranged these pieces of wood with the plants on them into a more spread out setup where they could kind of weave in and out of those more. And now he can make small circles to get away from that other mono and stay more on the lower level. And it doesn't seem like that little bit of false chasing bothers him nearly as much. Making those changes really helped, but sometimes he would still go up in the corner. We've got a chase right there. See, he just circles through those plants. He doesn't completely just continue to run. He'll make a little circle away from him and then find another little hiding spot. There we go. See, he was able to dip down. Now he's in between those. So I don't love that he's still being chased. So what I did today was I added these floating plants that have this big hanging root system. And now the puffers are hanging out in that all the time. And the mono really hasn't started using it yet. But the big takeaway here is that if you add enough hiding places where that mono can stay out of the sight of the other one, it's definitely going to help. The takeaway here is, if you read that a fish does better in a larger group, keep it in a larger group, because you're seeing right now what happens if you don't. Another suggestion that was offered by the local fish store is if you put a mirror up next to your glass, you can give the larger, more dominant fish something to distract him, and he will often try to chase himself off and kind of lose sight of your smaller fish. I feel like this setup is going to continue to work, and this little guy is going to be fine until I add some more fish in 2 more days. So he's going to tough it out for a couple days. He's got some hiding spots, and that seems to be working. I almost forgot one other tip that can help that I just implemented a few minutes ago is reducing the temperature, because increased temperature increases activity, hostility, growth, feeding. Everything is more and faster when you increase an aquarium temperature. And so I've just turned my heaters down from 78 to 74 to see if that calms them down, but it'll take the water a little while to cool down. So if I was doing this again, what would I have done differently? I might have considered not bringing home that mono and that archer until all my fish were here. And that would have been better, so this was a learning experience. If I decided that this bullying was really harming the smaller mono, another option would obviously be to put in a tank divider up until my other fish come in. But I just think he's going to be okay, so I'm not going to worry about it. He doesn't seem to be stressed too much. He's not hiding. He's free swimming. He doesn't fully run from the larger mono at all times. So I don't think the other mono is trying to hurt him. I think he's just trying to establish dominance. By their nature, some types of fish are just aggressive towards their own species. But with that being said, I've seen fish that aren't supposed to be kept in pairs be successfully kept in pairs. One example is the Fish Story YouTube channel, who has multiple male bettas in a small planted tank and minimal aggression. So it can be done even if it doesn't seem like a good idea initially. You just have to pay extra caution and provide more hiding places. So I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.